News. Our next guest is the founder of ArtX Lagos, the first international art fair in West Africa, which showcases and supports the breadth of contemporary art from Africa and its diaspora. Since its debut, ArtX Lagos has attracted over 15,000 local and international visitors to see the works of 120 artists drawn from 15 countries across Africa and the diaspora. Joining us in the studio to talk about African arts is Nigerian entrepreneur and businesswoman Tokini Peterside. Good morning, Tokini.
Good morning.
It's nice to have you here.
Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
First, let me congratulate you on the great work you're doing promoting African arts. My first point of interest is about how this is important in the arena of cultural diplomacy. How much support do you get from either state government or the federal government, and how much value, in terms of the value that they place on the cultural diplomacy aspect of what you do?
Thank you, and thank you again for having me on the show. So with regards to the cultural diplomacy aspect, it's interesting that you bring that up first, because that's one of the major reasons why we created the platform ArtX Lagos. Ultimately, we aim to show the world that right here in Lagos and across Nigeria and the rest of Africa, there are these phenomenal cultural ambassadors who are creating the best art that can rival the art that's being produced in other countries around the world. Now, with regards to the federal government and the state government, we actually haven't begun to engage in such a proactive way yet, but I will say that we are in talks to see how we can take the vision for ArtX Lagos and make it even bigger and much more robust than it currently is.
Okay, and speaking of that, what are the important issues that you're facing right now with the involvement of ArtX?
Well, with regards to the issues we face, I mean, I would always prefer to start by talking about the opportunities, actually, because one of the things we are finding is that since we launched this, the response has just been phenomenal, right in Lagos and across the continent. I mean, even this year, our next edition will be next week, opening next Friday. And we have so many international visitors coming to visit and coming to see the work that we have put together. Now, with regards to the challenges, what we're actually finding is that our platform is growing much faster than we even envisaged, which means that from a logistics point of view, putting together this experience each year, it has been a little bit challenging. I spend my time going around venues in Lagos. I'm in meetings with LASMA, looking at traffic issues and logistics concerns. These are just some of the kinds of challenges that we face. But I will say that overwhelmingly, we have had such positive support. I'm so grateful to the many, many companies and corporations that have believed in our vision and provide the much needed funding to bring it to life.
Well, let me take you back to the question about cultural diplomacy. I mean, this is a private initiative.
Yes.
Whatever benefits your organization will be getting from it, but if you bring thousands and thousands of, artists to Nigeria again and again, one will expect that you should not be the one to even seek out government. That government will seek you out and try to make things easier. It wouldn't be you having to engage LASMA, it will be government seeing an opportunity here. That's the kind of question I was trying to put across to you.
Yes, it is a very valid question. It is one that we have grappled with a lot over the past 3 years since we launched. We are hopeful that the government, both federal and state, will recognize the value in our platform. We have reached out to government in the past, but I think that I suspect that what they wanted was to see and understand that this was really a platform with longevity. So, for example, the Lagos State Commissioner of Culture, Mr. Steve Ayorinde, he'll be coming to the Art Fair this year. Last year, we even had the Federal Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, come to the fair. So they have been coming in very gradually to see what we are doing. But yes, as you say, we do hope that they will recognize the strength that a platform like ours has in terms of being a cultural diplomacy avenue for Nigeria and for Lagos State and across the world. Our message really does hit a global audience.
Okay, this big men that have been attending your events, like the Minister of Information and others? Do they just come as guests and, they have the photo opportunity and they leave?
A nice photo up and post it on their gram.
Well, they've come, they have encountered, they have looked at what we have done, they've asked questions. And I would say that thus far, we haven't taken the conversations much further, but we are hoping
what
that
sort
we
of
will be able to.
conversations are you having? Is just purchase, or
I mean, so not purchase, but there is a lot of support that could be had. I'll give you an example. I received an email this morning from one of our South African galleries that's coming with the work of a South African and a Kenyan artist to Nigeria.
Okay.
Now, they've just had their visas held up.
Oh.
The kind of support we want is for the state government or the federal government to send a letter across its various embassies in the world that are relevant, saying to people there is an event such as Artex Lagos that happens annually. When visitors come to you with that application, please make things easier for them.
Right.
Instead, due to the visa regime that we have, my personal passport is all over the world. Any visitor from Colombia, from Indonesia, from the US that wants to come, I have to send them my personal information for them to be able to apply for the visas as guests of our company. Now, if, as Dr. Abati is saying, if we were recognized and endorsed by the government, it is possible that this type of issue or situation could be alleviated. That's the kind of support that we would love to have, because there are so many people from across the world coming to Artex Lagos each year, and the numbers are growing. We want to make things easier for them.
Okay.
Funding, let's talk about funding.
Yes.
I mean, if people are coming from everywhere, that must be a huge responsibility in terms of finance.
Yes.
Have you ever tried to take advantage of opportunities available through the Bank of Industry, for example, or the Creative Arts Fund, the Fund for the Creative Industry, which the Jonathan government provided, which this government is also sustaining? Or you are so rich on your own, you don't need that kind of support?
No, so if I'm honest, when we were launching Artex Lagos as an art fair, we looked at the models that are being used globally by art fairs all over the world. There are a couple of art fairs in South Africa, there are art fairs in Europe and the West, Asia, as you know. And what we found was that those organizations usually relied on marketing, sponsorship, and also corporate social investment funding from the corporate sector. So our first port of call was actually the corporate sector. We knocked on the doors of many banks and institutions around Nigeria. And when we knocked on those doors opened. Now, it's not to say that we were swimming in the funds and that money was so much that we didn't call on the government, because we did call on the government as well. But what we were told was that, look, this is a private initiative. Go and seek your private funding. Now, with regards to the Bank of Industry, etc., that you mentioned, no, we hadn't reached out to them. Instead, what we spent a lot of our time doing was pitching this initiative and this vision to the corporate sector, and we got a lot of support. So corporations, for example, such as Access Bank, came on board from day one.
Okay.
And we have had since about 9 other organizations, both multinational and Nigerian, deciding to support our platform because they see the potential for it as a very strong base for them to engage with a very broad clientele.
What should we be looking forward to this year? What are you likely to do differently? What's the special pitch?
So for this year, we have a number of things up our sleeve. There's one very exciting surprise that we are working on together with Access Bank that I'm not allowed to share.
You're not allowed to share.
I'm not allowed to share. I
Why?
received a clear mandate from Mr. Herbert Wigwe yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to share it at all. So all I would say is please come as a guest to our event so that you can
That's
enjoy
a nice
this.
One. So now I'm excited to see the surprise.
Maybe if you tell, maybe that will encourage more people to
It
come.
may encourage them, but we want those who truly value the experience to come and then be pleasantly surprised. But then there are other things that we're working on. For example, we will be bringing to Nigeria the British-Nigerian artist Yinka Shonibare.
Oh my God, so exciting.
Yinka Shonibare is incredibly exciting. I mean, he has
Is this his first time?
No,
Well,
he
like
was in Nigeria 2 years ago with the British Council when they brought one of his sculptures to a park on the mainland.
The wind sculpture.
The wind sculpture, exactly. Now this year, but that was simply the sculpture. What we are doing at Artex Lagos is organizing an exhibition to celebrate his career highlights. Many of us know the name Yinka Shonibare, but we haven't seen the breadth of his work,
Yes.
the phenomenal things that he has done as an ambassador for Nigerian culture all over the world. And so we're really excited to have him celebrated in this way. He will also be speaking at our fair on the finale day of the fair. Already, I mean, with the number of seats that we have available, people have been reserving them, requesting. We're very excited to have him. In addition, we also have an artist at the opposite end of the spectrum, a young, emerging Nigerian female artist who won our prize, the Artex Prize with Access, earlier in the year. She will be showcasing the kind of art that I'm sure you haven't seen, video art mixed with digital interactivity.
Very nice. So visual art.
Visual art.
Yeah.
And that's very exciting too. There's a lot to look forward to at Artex Lagos this year.
Okay, so let me ask. So since starting ArtX, this is the 3rd edition, correct?
Yes.
So what kind of developments have you seen in this region so far?
I mean, the developments are huge and they're vast. You know, contemporary African art is on the rise with regards to how it is perceived both on the continent and also globally. Now, there's a lot of this narrative that talks about international collectors increasingly wanting to collect African art. What we have tried to do as the fair is to say that that's great for the international market, but we also want many local Africans, many Nigerians who can afford this art to start seeing themselves as patrons of the arts. And we are seeing that in increasing numbers with each edition that we organize. So whereas some of our galleries that exhibit at our fair felt that they knew everybody there was to know with regards to people that could patronize the arts, they are finding as well that they are meeting new people at every edition, striking new relationships that are enabling them to have much stronger commercial positions. We also are a gateway for the international community, the international art world. We see many young Nigerian artists being encountered by some of the biggest galleries on the continent, striking up relationships with them, and as a result being taken overseas for very, very exciting landmark shows. Another development we're also seeing is in the average age of the attendee at art experiences across Nigeria now. You know, we launched with a fair that made it clear to young people that they were welcome. You may not be a buyer, you may not be afford to buy right now, but you are welcome.
Yes.
Come and experience it and come and participate. Since Artex Lagos, I can actually confidently say that young people have felt much more emboldened to be participants in the art sector more broadly. So we see them now at auctions, we see them now at gallery openings, whereas previously they may not have felt so welcome. These are just some of the developments.
So how many galleries are participating and how many are international? How many are local?
This year we will have 18 galleries, so we've grown and increased to that number. 10 of them are actually international and 8 are local. We're excited to have this year a gallery from Spain coming to exhibit really fantastic art from Ivorian and Kenyan artists. We also have 2 galleries from the United Kingdom also showing African artists in diaspora. And then this year we have galleries from Ethiopia, from Kenya and Uganda, which will make for many Nigerian collectors the first time they are encountering the best art from East Africa.
When you invite these galleries and artists, what do you look out for? I mean, you've been doing this for some time. You have your own ideas.
Yes.
What do you look out for? Is it form? Is it message? Is it anthropology? Or is it postmodernism? Or is it just diversity?
So when we invite these galleries, we really look at the impact that each of them has on their local environment. And this is not something that I do alone. I work with a selection committee of remarkable individuals made of collectors and curators who are very experienced in African art and also Nigerian art. When galleries apply to us, we say to them that we look at the strength of the gallery itself, who are the artists that they normally work with, and then the presentation as well that they've put forward to us. Now, we are not able to prescribe about the very specific details, such as the type of work that must be seen. We do have criteria, but what we want always is diversity and breadth at our fair. You know, we never want you to walk into the art fair and feel as though it was sort of curated with a singular eye or a singular vision. We want there to be something for the different types of tastes that we have in our environment. And that's
so what's the selection process like? So they submit their art, or you just go and pick and choose?
So what we do is at the start of each year, we invite galleries, we issue invitations to the strongest galleries across Africa and in the diaspora, and we invite them all to apply with a range of artists that they would want to showcase at Artex Lagos. When those applications come in, we then sit with our selection committee and we review them. And we select the applications that we believe have the best chance of success. Now, I say that because we are so mindful of the need for these galleries to succeed when they come to ArtX. That's also a lens with which we evaluate the applications. You know, we have had applications from other galleries outside Nigeria, which are so abstract, so conceptual, that we feel, is our audience really going to patronize this art? And whilst it would be nice to have those galleries feature, we don't accept them because we know that they may not succeed in this environment. So when we do that evaluation, we then reach back to the galleries who then start to make their preparations. And along the way, they keep us carried along. Their artists usually like to make brand new work for the fair. So a few months down the line, we then start to look at that work. We look at their design plans for the fair, how they want to display their booths, their hanging areas. It's a very hands-on process, and we really do collaborate with the galleries to ensure a successful.
Let me ask you a routine question.
Yeah,
How
sure.
profitable is this as a business? I mean, when some of those artworks get sold, what's the sharing formula?
I was about to ask you what your paycheck is.
I can imagine. I see where it's going. So with regards to the profitability of what we do, we actually follow a model that is standard with art fairs across the world, which is that we actually do not take a profit share of the works that are sold. What we do is that the galleries pay us for the spaces that they have. So we play the role of a landlord and that of a platform. We don't take a commission on the art sales. It's funny you mentioned that because a lot of people assume that we do. And I even have some very strong, very funny collector friends who have called me to say, oh, I know you're taking a commission, but I bought it outside of ArtX. I'm sorry I ate into your commission. And I'm like, so you thought I was taking a commission and you still went ahead and did this deal outside of ArtX. But anyway, good for you to know that we're not taking a commission in that way. And then, of course, we have the corporate sponsorships, we have ticket sales. These are all things that contribute to the bottom line at the end of the day.
Okay, let's talk about African art, right? And can you truly define what African art is? We had an artist here, I forget his name. He actually said there's absolutely nothing like African art. Is that a position that you hold as well?
So there's a lot of debate out there about this label, African art. There are many artists who rebel against that labeling because that labeling was instituted by the international art world. And many artists, even Yinka Shonibare, will tell of examples when he was an art student and created work in response to events in Russia and had his art professor tell him, but you're an African artist, this work has nothing to do with you, why aren't you creating African art? Now, artists get very upset when they hear that label because the international audience saying that is expecting to see the stereotypical scenes that are associated with Africa in the West. And artists are saying, I am an artist. Whether I'm African or not should be irrelevant. Approach me and see me as an artist. Don't try and put me in a bucket or in a club that you then try to determine what that club ought to look like. Now, the challenge that many of us face in the industry is that we understand those concerns, we understand those considerations, and at the same time, we also know that there needs to be a labeling of sorts. So you hear people say African contemporary art. You hear people say contemporary art by African or diaspora artists. I think there is still a lot of work that needs to be done on the labeling in that way.
Okay, we don't have much time. I just want to ask you a quick question. I saw a video of you on TEDx, right? And you talked about the need for a new school of cultural ambassadors, right? Can you talk to us about that? Because I found that really interesting.
Thank you. It's a subject that I'm really passionate about. You know, for many years as a young person, I always marveled at the fact that Nigeria had these phenomenal cultural assets, our people, our artists, our filmmakers, our musicians, but we were not, as a country, really capitalizing on that.
Right.
And so my TEDx talk focused on the need for more people within the creative sector to see themselves as cultural ambassadors for Nigeria. I used the example of two artists, Modupe Olafadupa and Emeka Ogbo, artists who are taking on real issues in Nigeria. They're not sugarcoating them, and they are packaging them and presenting them in a very constructive way for us and for the international world to engage with us. I believe very strongly in the power of our artists and our creatives to be ambassadors that will ultimately change the narrative about Nigeria and about Africa.
Well, before we let you go, let me ask you, why art? I mean, what's the motivation? How did you get to this line of business? You could have opened a restaurant or something.
So the honest truth is that I'm very passionate about culture. And for me, culture is art, it's music, it's film, it's fashion, it's design. And I chose to begin with Artex as the platform because I recognized that the art sector really had some tremendous gems that weren't yet being presented to the world and opened up for many of us to see. I have been a passionate collector for over 10 years. And I also do believe firmly that our artists are the historiographers of our time. They are telling the story of our civilization for future generations to encounter. And I was just very mindful of the challenges the artists were facing, having to emigrate beyond Nigeria because they wanted better commercial opportunities for themselves. So as someone who enjoys the work that they produce, I thought it was very important to produce a catalyst platform that would support them and would make life easier for them.
That's great. Thank you, Tokini.
So any long-term goals for ArtX? What are they?
ArtX, long-term goals? We want to take over the world.
Okay, so just move away from Africa and just go global, right?
Well, we want to go global. You know, we are catalysts that are here to shake up the industry, to inspire the next generation of artists, and to really magnify this patronage. We want to see a situation where every African, every Nigerian is patronizing the arts, is recognizing the value that these artists bring to our society. So there's so much more we can do there.
Well, thank you. We have to let you go now.
Thank you so much, Tokini.
And
congratulations on everything that you've achieved so far.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to seeing you this week, right?
Yes, next week.
I hope you have tickets for both of us.
Of course
right?
we do.
Okay, let's see how I reserved a ticket for you on air. Thank you. It's a pleasure having you here. We'll take a short break now on the morning show. When we return, Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni will join us to review some of the headlines on today's newspapers. Stay with us.
Thinking of banking in Africa? Think Zenith. In today's fast-moving, fast-changing world, you need a financial partner that understands your unique expectations. A bank with presence in major financial centers across the world, with the enabling platform to facilitate seamlessly, whenever, wherever, however. A bank with best-in-class financial solutions from a superb combination of technology and human touch. For easy, fast and secure banking that creates real value. Turning dreams into reality is now